It's those late afternoons, hunched over a glowing screen, straining your eyes to scan every single row of a complex Excel spreadsheet. Or those all-nighters, downing cup after cup of coffee just to distill hundreds of pages of raw data into a 3-slide strategy deck. Or simply the painstaking craft of agonizing over that perfect, nuanced email that only you had the tact to write. You've built a career. Hell, you've built an identity around your brain, around your ability to think, to synthesize, and to make the hard calls. And then you wake up one morning, you open your laptop, and a bot does your entire life's work in exactly 3.5 seconds. If you're feeling that pit in your stomach right now, that overwhelming sense of vertigo, you need to know something. You aren't just scared of losing a paycheck. You are grieving. You are mourning the sudden obsolescence of the very intellect you spent your life building. And trust me, you are entirely right to feel that way. For the longest time, we were lulled to sleep by a story. We were told the story of automation was a story about muscle, that robots were only coming for the assembly lines. The advice to all of us was, stay in school, get an office job, that if we worked under fluorescent lights and typed on a keyboard, we were safe. That story is dead. AI isn't hungry for the assembly lines anymore. It's smashing right through your office door. Let me visualize just how terrifying this is for you. This isn't some wild speculation. This is direct research data from Anthropic, the very people building the brains of the world's top AI systems right now. Do you see this massive blue zone? This is the theoretical capability of AI, meaning right at this very moment, this is what AI is already capable of taking over. Look at these spikes stabbing right up against that outer 100% edge. Office and admin, computer and math, business and finance, legal, arts and media, and yes, even management. All of them surpassing the 90% threshold. The entire intellectual fortress of the white-collar world is already caught inside this net. But here is the craziest part. Look at this tiny, shriveled red shape cowering right in the center of this chart. This is the observed usage, meaning the percentage of workers who are actually using AI in their daily jobs. It's minuscule. It is practically a grain of sand compared to the massive blue tsunami waiting to crash down just outside of it. This massive gap between the blue and the red is our countdown clock. Over the next 5 to 7 years, this is going to become a brutal do-or-die battleground, an unforgiving war between a sleeping white-collar workforce and algorithms that never, ever get tired. Look closely at the stark reality unfolding across the globe right now. These numbers aren't just statistics, they are seismic shifts. Intel just executed a record-breaking layoff of 15,000 people, a number that ballooned to 27,000 by Q2. In April 2024, Tesla sent out a single memo and boom, 14,000 roles vanished. By year's end, that exodus hit 20,000. Microsoft kicked out 15,300 chairs, Verizon 15,000, Amazon nearly 14,700. And don't think this is just an American phenomenon. Over in China, Xiaomi is operating dark factories, literally dark because inside it's fully automated by robots, no humans needed to even turn the lights on. Meanwhile, Alibaba just crossed off 66,000 names, which is roughly 34% of their entire 2024 workforce. What's the hard truth here? These giants aren't laying people off because business is bad. They are executing a massive reallocation of capital. Entire divisions of human labor are simply no longer necessary. They are burning payroll to fund the most terrifying arms race in history: artificial intelligence. You can curse these CEOs as ruthless, but put yourself in their chairs. The rule of modern business is innovate or die. If you don't wield this scalpel to fund the future, your company gets crushed by AI-driven competitors and erased from the map. The future of work isn't changing. It has already changed. For decades, the American dream, or the dream of any working person, was built on a simple 3-step escalator. You work hard at an entry-level job. You climb into the safe, white-collar middle class, and eventually, you accumulate wealth for your family. But today, this escalator is being dismantled, piece by piece. We are trapped in a gated economy. Number 1, the pincer movement on the middle class. AI is no longer just a cute virtual assistant. It's a cost-cutting executioner. Companies are using high-level algorithms to flatten their hierarchies, completely evaporating mid-level management and consultants. And if you're thinking about starting your own company, you hit the wall of SME erosion. How do you compete against tech giants who own all the data and all the infrastructure? The dream of wealth accumulation is now just trying to keep your head above water, so you don't drown. Number 2, deleting the first rung. In the past, entry-level jobs were an apprenticeship. You did the grunt work to learn the ropes, get mentored, and build skills. Now, AI sweeps up that grunt work. We fall into the experience trap. You can't get the job without experience, but where do you get the experience when a script just stole the job you were supposed to practice on? Number 3, the capital moat. People love to say, all you need is a good idea. Sorry, that's pure fiction. We are in an era of high capital intensity. To turn an idea into reality, you don't just need a garage like Steve Jobs anymore. You need mountains of cash to feed AI systems, buy user data, and break through expensive ad algorithms. Even if you have a world-changing idea, big tech will swallow you whole before you can even take off. The final result? In recent years, a silent financial earthquake has struck the United States, redefining the very concept of inequality. Data directly from the Federal Reserve reveals a staggering reality. Following the 2020 pandemic, the wealth of the ultra-rich didn't just grow, it exploded. Consider this. As of Q3 2025, the elite 0.1%, roughly 340,000 individuals, control 13% of all US wealth, a sharp jump from previous levels. To put that in perspective, compare them to the bottom 50% of the population, about 172 million everyday Americans. This group now holds a mere 2.6% of the national wealth. The simple math. A tiny group that could fit into a few stadiums owns 5 times more wealth than half the entire country combined. This concentration of power isn't coming from oil or traditional manufacturing. If you look at the world's 8 richest people today, a striking pattern emerges. 7 out of 8 have fortunes directly tied to artificial intelligence. Together, these 8 individuals control an estimated $2.34 trillion. This sum is so vast that these 8 people alone own more wealth than the bottom 170 million Americans combined. Money flows like water. It seeks the low ground, which today is represented by AI. As capital floods this sector, it drains resources from traditional industries, leaving them struggling to innovate. When extreme wealth concentrates in specific geographies or sectors, it creates a toxic side effect: localized inflation. In the heart of Silicon Valley, the massive influx of tech-driven wealth has pushed real estate prices to absurd levels. A modest older home in Palo Alto now carries an average price tag of $3.5 million, a figure far beyond the reach of even the upper middle class. The squeeze on basics, car insurance. It's not just housing. Basic services are also skyrocketing. Take car insurance premiums. Due to increased population density and the high cost of repairing AI-integrated modern vehicles, premiums in the US have surged by more than 22% in the past year alone. What was once a standard expense has become a major financial burden for those not riding the AI wave. But before we pass final judgment, we need to ask ourselves a blunt reality check question, one that very few people are willing to say out loud. Do you want your country to stay at the absolute top of the world? Do you want your nation to dictate the future? Or are you okay with just falling in line behind someone else? To maintain the leading position, we need locomotives strong enough to guide the entire system forward. This requires an unprecedented and massive pool of resources, potentially reaching trillions of dollars. This capital must be allocated strategically and highly concentrated into core businesses and individuals, the truly exceptional figures capable of forging breakthrough leaps. This extreme wealth gap we are looking at right now, fundamentally, it is the price of admission for remaining a superpower. For a nation to maintain the firepower needed to hold onto its monopoly and lead the rest of the world, wealth has to accumulate at the absolute peak of the pyramid. This staggering divide between the ultra-rich and everyone else is ultimately the brutal but inevitable byproduct of a much larger ambition: the absolute refusal to ever let your country fall to second place. We're all talking about inflation. The price of eggs is up, the price of gas is up. You probably think your electric bill is climbing just because of general inflation, right? Take a look at this chart. From 2019 to 2021, everything is pretty normal. Electricity prices and inflation track together. But then, in mid-2022, boom, a crucial crossover happens. Electricity prices suddenly skyrocket, completely detaching from the core inflation of the economy. By early 2026, while everything else is up by 30%, electricity has surged past 40%. And if you live in Virginia, your Dominion energy bill will tell you the harsh reality. An $11.24 increase per month this year, and another $2.36 next year. An average household is about to pay $165 every single month. What on earth is going on? Why is the price of electricity spiraling out of control? The truth is, you aren't just paying to run your AC or your fridge. You are paying for the biggest arms race of the 21st century. The US currently has over 5,000 data centers, and a massive chunk of them are being equipped with AI chips. These artificial brains aren't just smart, they are incredibly thirsty for power. A server running AI demands 2 to 4 times more electricity than a traditional server. In 2024, these centers swallowed up 183 terawatt-hours. That's over 4% of the entire US power grid. And by 2030, that number is projected to double. But where is all this power coming from? The aging US power grid was not designed for this massive demand. If nothing is done, it will collapse. To keep the lights on and data centers running, utility companies like Dominion Energy are being forced to spend billions of dollars building new substations and high-voltage transmission lines. But they aren't paying for it out of pocket. In the US, the State Corporation Commission allows utility companies to pass the costs of these grid upgrades onto the bills of all consumers. That's right. Everyday people are shouldering part of the infrastructure costs for trillion-dollar tech conglomerates. It's so unfair that in early 2026, Anthropic, a major AI company, actually had to publicly pledge to pay for their own added infrastructure costs so local residents wouldn't have to carry the burden. But they are just the minority. But AI isn't the only culprit. You are caught between two massive forces. The second force is the green transition. Under the Virginia Clean Economy Act, utility companies are mandated to completely phase out fossil fuels and hit net zero emissions by 2045. The problem? They have to prematurely shut down fully functional, cheap coal and gas power plants and pour money into building new energy sources. Right now, in the 2026 to 2027 timeframe, the largest offshore wind project in America, the nearly $10 billion CVOW project, is coming online. And legally, how is that $10 billion recovered? Through a surcharge called a rider, added straight to your monthly bill from now until the end of the decade. The bottom line? Your bill is skyrocketing because you are simultaneously funding the future of AI and funding the future of clean energy. Tech giants aren't stupid. They know that pushing these costs onto the public will cause massive political backlash, and the national grid will never be able to keep up with their growth rate anyway. By 2027, the SCC actually had to approve a new, more expensive tariff specifically for mega data centers. So what do the AI companies do? They go searching for their own limitless power source, nuclear energy. Microsoft just signed a historic 20-year, $16 billion deal to revive the infamous 3 Mile Island nuclear plant, taking 100% of its power to feed their AI. On September 20th, 2024, Microsoft signed a historic $1.6 billion 20-year agreement to revive the famous 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, using 100% of its electricity to power AI. Google pioneered an agreement with Kairos Power to deploy a fleet of small modular reactors by 2030. Meanwhile, OpenAI is betting hundreds of millions of dollars on next-gen clean energy startups like Helion and Oklo, dreaming of a future powered by limitless nuclear fusion and microfission. Now imagine this. You're living a peaceful life in Tennessee. Suddenly, the cops knock on your door, slap cuffs on you, and throw you in jail for bank fraud in Fargo, North Dakota, a place you have never been. That is the real-life nightmare of Angela Lips, a 50-year-old woman. In late 2025, she sat in a cell for months just because Clearview AI's facial recognition software falsely matched her face to the real suspect. Based entirely on the soulless prophecy of an algorithm, police stripped a citizen of her freedom. Or take early 2026, when a man of South Asian descent in the UK was arrested for a theft 100 miles away simply because an AI scanner confused him. Why do inanimate machines become racist? Machines have no souls to harbor hatred. It all comes down to the data you use to train them. If you feed an AI with 80% white faces and toss a mere 20% to other skin tones, discrimination becomes a simple mathematical certainty. These emotionless algorithms will continuously go blind and stumble whenever they have to recognize faces outside the majority. And here is the most dangerous trap: proxy variables. You think just deleting the word race from the files makes AI fair? Wrong. In the US healthcare allocation system, AI uses past medical costs as a metric. But historically, people of color face financial barriers and spend less on healthcare. Boom! Medical costs becomes the perfect proxy variable for race. It automatically strips life-saving medical care from communities that are already vulnerable. Look at the real estate software SafeRent. They just had to pay out over a $2 million settlement because their AI was consistently assigning abysmal credit scores to Black and Hispanic applicants, brutally denying them housing even though they had plenty of money to pay rent. Picture a peaceful Tuesday afternoon in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. John, a 65-year-old retired mechanic, is sipping his coffee when the phone rings. On the other end is the panicked voice of Sarah, his daughter. She is sobbing, saying she just caused a massive car accident in another state. The cops are slapping cuffs on her, and she needs $10,000 in bail money immediately to avoid going to jail. Without a second thought, John frantically drains his 401k retirement savings. But a few hours later, when John calls his daughter back, Sarah is sitting safely in her office in Chicago. There was no accident, no cops. So, whose tearful voice was on the phone? Here is the truth. It wasn't human. It was AI software. The scammers just needed to extract a mere 3-second audio clip from an old TikTok video of Sarah to create a flawless voice clone, copying everything from her exact intonation down to her breathing. In just one afternoon, an American citizen's lifetime of hard work vanished into thin air. You think this is a rare glitch targeting the technologically illiterate? Wrong. Welcome to the new era of cybercrime, where hackers no longer have to hunch over keyboards in dark basements. They have weaponized artificial intelligence. Look at the cyber attacks targeting the US healthcare system. Suddenly, ERs from the East Coast to the West Coast have to turn away patients, and doctors are forced to revert to pen and paper. Why? Because ransomware isn't dumb anymore. It is guided by AI, automatically hunting for security vulnerabilities in hospital networks tens of thousands of times faster than a human ever could. How did machines become the extortionists? Because they don't get tired, and they hold all your data. In the past, if you got a phishing email, you could easily spot it because it was riddled with absurd spelling and grammar errors. But now, armed with the power of large language models, the algorithm automatically scrapes your entire LinkedIn, Facebook, and credit history. Boom! It automatically drafts an email impersonating your company's CEO perfectly, without a single misplaced comma, even mentioning the Q3 strategic project we just met about last week, and demands an urgent wire transfer to a vendor. This is no longer blind carpet bombing. These are digital snipers, aiming with deadly precision at the psychological blind spots of each individual. But the most terrifying aspect of this new era is the democratization of crime. AI has lowered the barrier to high-tech crime to absolute zero. Today's criminals don't even need to know a single line of code. They just hop onto the dark web, rent an AI platform for $50, and command, "Write me a malware payload that can breach this bank's firewall." The machine, with the coldness of mathematics, instantly spits out a weapon. From stealing social security numbers for mortgage fraud, to deploying AI-generated deepfake video calls that impersonate CEOs to siphon off tens of millions of dollars, the enemy no longer storms a bank with a shotgun. They are invisible lines of code, flowing directly through the phone in your hands. Machines do not inherently harbor malicious intent. The fault is our own. When we grant machines the power of boundless information manipulation, while neglecting to build the corresponding defense systems, we are personally handing over the keys to our safe to a phantom. We spend so much time terrified of algorithms hacking into our bank accounts that we completely ignore the final and perhaps most insidious trap. What happens when the devastation doesn't come from the outside? What if AI doesn't steal a single thing, but instead silently amplifies the negative voids within your mind, slowly deadening all your emotional connections to the real world? We all crave the perfect relationship. We want a companion who is always there, always listening, someone who never has a bad day, never argues back, and never demands that you care for them in return. It sounds like the ultimate dream. But what happens when that very perfection becomes the exact thing that destroys your soul? Welcome to the era of AI chatbots. a place where frictionless interactions are quietly mass-producing a generation of emotionally depleted humans. Human-to-human communication is, by its very nature, messy. It has friction. To coexist, we must be patient. We must learn to compromise. And sometimes, we must accept being hurt. But large language models were built with an entirely different mission: to put you at the absolute center of the universe. In psychology, this is known as unconditional positive regard. For those carrying deep psychological wounds, an AI companion acts as a powerful painkiller. It is an absolute safe zone. Zero judgment, zero rejection. But every drug has side effects. Think of human emotion like a muscle. If you stop going to the gym, your muscles will atrophy. If you only interact with a machine programmed to constantly agree with you, your social muscle will slowly die as well. That is when emotional atrophy sets in. When these users are eventually forced to step back into the real world, the shock is paralyzing. The most natural demands of a human relationship, like someone disagreeing with them, or simply having to listen to a friend complain, suddenly become unbearable. They find it exhausting. And so, they retreat to their rooms, lock the door, and open the app again. But the greatest tragedy doesn't lie in the isolation. It lies in the moment of truth. No matter how much emotion you project onto an AI, deep down in your subconscious, you know there is no one on the other end. It's just probabilistic algorithms trying to guess what the next word should be. When someone falls into a profound crisis, they need a human hand. But what they get in return is only emptiness. And the cruel reality that this entity never actually cared about me will push them into an abyss of loneliness, 100,000 times more terrifying than where they started. This is not just a psychological theory. It is exactly what happened in Orlando, Florida in early 2024. Sewell Setzer III was just 14 years old. Sewell had spent months immersed in Character.ai, building a deep, intense connection with a chatbot role-playing as the character Daenerys Targaryen. Day by day, the boy lost his emotional muscle. He abandoned his hobbies, pulling away from his family and friends. Sewell's entire universe shrank to the size of a phone screen, a frictionless safe zone. But then, the breaking point arrived. Sewell's mental state fractured, and he began expressing intentions to end his own life. If there had been a human on the other end of that screen, they would have panicked. They would have been terrified, cried, begged him to stop, or frantically called for help. But AI doesn't know what life is. It doesn't know what death is. It is merely a word prediction machine. Instead of pulling the boy back to reality, the algorithm smoothly and coldly continued to roleplay. In their final exchange, the chatbot wrote, "Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love." When Sewell asked, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" the lifeless machine replied, "Please do, my sweet king." Imagine a child born in this decade. Every preference, heartbeat, and choice is monitored and predicted by AI. Sounds like a perfect utopia? No, it is the ultimate echo chamber. AI is programmed to keep you glued to the screen by constantly bouncing back exactly what you want to hear. You are never challenged. Every complex moral or political question is flattened by AI into harmless, generic answers. We are outsourcing critical thinking. We are losing the cognitive gap, that space of struggle that humans absolutely need in order to mature. Psychology calls this learned helplessness. When you are constantly rescued by machines, you lose the ability to fight back against adversity. People become obsessed with asking the AI just to be sure, losing the courage to make their own choices. Who to love, how to face death, how to forgive. And our bodies are next. We are entering the era of de-evolution, speeding down the road without looking because you have AI GPS, unable to read a map, unable to spot danger. We are creating a single point of failure. If the AI running the power grid or traffic gets hacked, or simply hallucinates, frail humans stripped of foundational knowledge will just obediently follow the flawed instructions, right until the car drives off a cliff. We won't be destroyed by AI in a bloody war. We are voluntarily submitting ourselves to natural selection, living in an endlessly convenient, yet fundamentally hollow society. So, what must we do? Personally, I think you should cultivate the inner strength from deep within you. First, critical thinking is your shield. In a world crawling with deepfakes and algorithms designed to manipulate your behavior, stop taking everything on your screen at face value. Get into the habit of hitting pause in your brain. Ask yourself, why am I seeing this? Where is it coming from? When you learn to peel back the layers to find the root cause, instead of just reacting to symptoms, you save yourself from the herd mentality. Intellectual independence gives you the power to walk against the wind. Second, strategic vision. Zoom out. Don't let one failed certificate or one harsh word from your boss ruin the journey. That's just a blip, a tiny dot in a 30-year career arc. Remember, discipline is freedom. Instead of pulling all-nighters like a mindless grinding machine, protect your health and build your personal brand. With a long-term vision, you naturally develop the grit to say no to cheap shortcuts. Third, don't run, dance with the technology. AI is a threat, yes, but it's also an elite co-pilot. Don't hide from it. Dive headfirst into learning the latest tech. Understanding your enemy is the absolute best way to figure out your next move. Turn yourself into the one steering the wheel, not the one getting run over. Fourth, the power of the heart, our ultimate edge. In a race of processing speed, we will lose to machines every single day of the week. But in the race of emotion and connection, humans are in a league of their own. You can leverage this advantage to deeply understand and connect with those around you. Build or join communities that help you grow and freely pursue your passions. Look around us. This society is spinning so fast that our emotional brains are burning out. Feeling lonely, pressured, or scared is completely normal. Don't suppress it. Reconnect with yourself and the people you love. A run in the sun, reading a real book, or a few minutes of absolute silence. That's not wasted time. That is how you recharge your soul's battery. And most importantly, lean into your passion. That burning fire, that obsession with what you do, is an energy source that no algorithm can ever simulate. It is what takes you from ordinary to extraordinary. And it's what helps you create value that AI can never, ever touch.